The sky of Aurelia, 9 burned with golden fire as twin suns rose, and just as Captain Riven sipped his morning brew, a pale dragon-like creature stepped from the mist with a dying hatchling clutched in its jaws, staring at him with eyes full of desperate hope. And in that breathless moment, he knew one choice could either save an entire species or doom them all. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The mug hit the floor before the fear even reached my throat. Sunlight had just brushed the rim of the plains beyond Hab Unit 3 when I saw it. A pale shape standing quiet in the mist, thin wings folded like stitched paper, orange eyes watching me with a steady fire. In her mouth, careful as a nurse, a small hatchling dangled, limp as a wet ribbon. The albino dwarf dragon was real, not campfire rumor, not late shift talk, and she was here for me. Yesterday I had seen her near the hydroponic tanks, ribs counting off under pale scales. I had tossed a slab of printed protein onto the dust. She stared a long time, as if weighing my worth, then took the food and slid into the violet trees. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Now she stood outside the airlock, her breath clouding the glass porthole, her eyes steady. The hatchling made a small sound like a squeaky hinge and went still again. The mother leaned forward. The impact sensor gave a soft chime. I jumped. My brain started listing rules. Keep the lock sealed. Never invite unknown fauna into a breathable space. Call security. Call command. Wait. Observe. Record. I pressed my palm to the inner panel anyway. The yellow lights began to turn, slow as sorrow. The automated voice warned me about suits and seals. I was wearing none of those. I stood in my work clothes, heart drumming, mouth dry, common sense thinning like morning fog. The outer door hissed and cool air rolled in. The smell of the violet forest came with it, sweet and mineral at once, with a whisper of ozone that I had learned to link with dragons. The mother lowered her head and slid the hatchling onto the cushioned threshold. She did not step in. She backed one careful pace and stayed there, eyes on my hands. "It's okay," I said, voice small. "It's okay, I see you." The hatchling was cold. Colder than the Xenobio field notes said it should be. Its tiny chest fluttered like a broken bellows. Pale scales showed a dull film around the eyes and nostrils. Infection, maybe. Dehydration for sure. But something else felt wrong, like a smell you can't name. I pulled down an emergency thermal wrap, tucked the hatchling in, and pressed a heater patch to the bundle. The mother's tail stilled, except for a twitch at the tip. Her gaze did not waver. I could feel a question in it, shaped like trust and fear at once. I tapped my comm. "Nora, to Dr. Amal Rafiq. I need you at Hab 3 right now. Bring the mobile kit." The line cracked. Amal sounded sleepy and then very awake. "On my way. You okay?" "I'm fine. The patient is unique." We cut the channel. I lifted the hatchling to my chest and tried not to shake. Outside, the mother dragon sat back on her haunches, wings drooping with tired edges that looked torn. Mud clung to her ankles. She had traveled far. She had chosen here. The security alert hit the public channel 2 minutes later. Unidentified fauna near Hab Unit 3. Team moving. I swore under my breath. Jace Torres would arrive with a rifle older than this planet and twice as loud. The mother dragon heard the distant hum before I did. Her spine rose and fell, then grew still. She fixed her eyes on me again. They held no heat of threat, only the tight glow of waiting. I triggered the inner door, slid into the airlock with the hatchling, and stepped onto the soil outside. The air tasted like a penny and rain. I raised my free hand, palm open. The mother lowered her head until her warm breath covered my fingers like fog. The hatchling gave a weak chirp. Her eyes widened, a quick brightness, then softened. The hum swelled into 3 security sleds, skimming low. Dust rose purple behind them. Jace jumped off before the lead sled kissed the ground. "Nora," he shouted. "Inside, now." "Lower the rifle," I said, but it came out as a whisper. The mother dragon turned her head toward the riders and opened her wings halfway, not to strike, but to shelter the airlock and me. Director Holmes' voice cut in on the shared channel, steady as stone. "Technician Dale, explain." "She brought a sick hatchling," I said, my words catching. "I'm stabilizing it. Dr. Rafik is inbound." There was a pause long enough to hold a planet. "Do not escalate," Holmes said at last. As we sealed the door, she pressed the glass with her nose and watched. Inside, the scanner hummed. Amal frowned. Dehydration, malnutrition, and something else. A signature I don't like. The screen showed a familiar jagged line. "This looks like a toxin," Amal said softly. "Slow exposure, not a bite, not a break. Something in the water or feed." Outside, the mother remained perfectly still, a statue with a heartbeat. Inside, the hatchling shivered under the thermal wrap and clung to my thumb with tiny, brave claws. The first minutes of any story decide the rest, I thought. I had chosen mine. Amal set gentle hands to work, moving like a tide. "I'm starting warm fluids," the medic said, "and a broad antitoxin from the general kit. It's not designed for dragons, but it's better than letting the clock run." "Will it hurt?" I asked, feeling foolish. "We cannot do nothing," Amal said. "We tell the body to fight while we learn what we're fighting." The hatchling whimpered at the needle, then settled, chest rising a little easier. Through the dome, the mother's eyes followed each motion like reading. She blinked slow when the hatchling stilled, then lifted her head as if listening to something I could not hear. The doors opened with practiced hiss, and Jace Torres stormed in with 2 riders, helmets tucked under arms. He kept the rifle low, but ready. "We can't let that creature near a breathing zone," he said, voice hard from old drills. "We push it back to the range and keep it there." "She brought us her baby," I said. "She brought bait," one rider muttered. Amal looked up. "If that were true, we'd be teeth deep by now." Jace's jaw worked. He turned to the glass. The mother dragon watched him without blinking. "Director Holm wants a live feed," Jace said. He tapped his wrist, and the room's cameras blinked on. Somewhere in the central dome, the admin team leaned closer to their screens. "Dr. Rafik," Director Holmes' voice came through, clipped and careful. "Your read." Amal gave the report. "Baseline signs, scan lines, best guess toxin." "My hypothesis," Amal said, "is environmental contamination, likely waterborne. The pattern is slow and layered. We need a sample of whatever this hatchling has eaten or drunk in the last day." "We're not trailing a dragon mother into the wild," Jace said, as if daring the room to argue. "She can show us," I said, surprising myself. Yesterday she understood an offer. Today she brought a plea. If we treat this little one and show her how, maybe she'll guide us to the source. "That is not a protocol," Jace said. "It could become one," Amal answered. Silence pressed on every surface. The hatchling breathed a little deeper. I tried to match it. I looked at the mother through the glass and lifted my empty hands. I pointed to the hatchling, then to the forest, then drew a curve in the air that meant path in the basic gesture set we used for human work crews. The mother watched me draw the shape again. Her pupils widened. She tapped the door frame with one claw, soft as a whisper. Director Holm broke the silence. "Jace, you will escort. Rifles down unless absolutely needed. Dr. Rafiq, Technician Dale, you may proceed as far as is safe. Record everything. If at any point that creature shows threat behavior, you pull back." "Copy," Jace said through teeth. Amal prepped a portable kit, swapping vials and filters with quick fingers. "Nora, I'll keep treating while we move. You keep talking. Keep calm. Keep your hands where Mama can see." I nodded, though my hands felt like borrowed tools. We cycled the outer door. The morning had sharpened into full day. The mother lifted her head as we stepped out and made a sound like wind through wires, soft and low. She leaned down and sniffed the hatchling in my arms. When the tiny one gave a stronger chirp, the mother's whole body loosened a fraction, as if a tight band had been cut. Jace's riders fanned to either side, careful. The mother looked at them, then returned her gaze to me and Amal. She turned toward the violet forest and took 3 steps, then looked back. She wanted us to follow. "We keep distance," Jace said, moving in a wide arc. "Nora, if she shifts fast, you drop flat. Amal, if she—" "I'm listening," Amal said, "and I am also walking." We entered the shadow of the tall fungal trunks. Their caps glowed faintly from within, like lanterns wrapped in milk glass. Underfoot, the soil was damp and springy, spiced with a sweet edge that clung to the tongue. The mother moved with quiet grace, tail making a path. Every dozen steps, she glanced back to make sure we were still with her. When the hatchling whimpered, she paused until the little breath steadied. After 10 minutes, we reached a shallow dip where water flowed in a thin, busy stream. On the far side, tucked into a cradle of shed scales and woven stems, 2 more hatchlings huddled. Their sides rose and fell too fast. They looked dull around the eyes. One tried to stand and sat down again on shaking legs. Amal knelt at once. "Same pattern," the medic murmured, scanning, dosing, warming. "This confirms environmental exposure. The stream is the likely vector." I crouched beside the water and dipped the analyzer. The readout leaped. "There it is," I said. "Bitter shade in high concentration." I followed the stream uphill with my eyes. A dark slide of earth cut a scar into the slope where a stand of bittershade bushes clung in a tangled mat. The last storm must have torn half the hillside into the watercourse. The mother dragon stepped to the stream and made a sharp chuff. She pointed her narrow snout at the scar, then at the nest, then at me. The urgency and the motion needed no translation. Voices crackled in our ears. Riders on the perimeter reported movement. More pale shapes slipped between the trees. Not just one mother and her young, but other adults, thinner than they should be, eyes bright with fear. Each carried or nudged a small hatchling that could barely keep a step. Within minutes, a quiet clearing became a crowded waiting room of scales and soft sounds. Jace went still. I watched him watch the mothers and the tiny shapes at their feet. His rifle lowered a little more. "Call in the cleaner," Amal said into the comm, hands steady as the medic worked. "We'll need a Terra unit to remove the bittershade and purge the stream. We also need more antitoxin, small doses, and heat wraps many." Amal glanced up at me. "Tell them to bring patience. We'll be here a while." The line opened to Director Holm again. "Approving the Terra unit," the admin said. Then, softer than before, "Keep those little hearts beating." The mother dragon who had come to my door stood over us while we worked. Every time a hatchling made a stronger sound, she made one too. A low hum like a note held under breath. When a tiny one shifted closer to warmth, she eased her body to shield it from wind without shading the light. As supplies neared and the stream's poison levels began to fall on the scanner, I felt something in the air change, like a window levering wider. The story was not safe yet, but it was turning, step by small step, into a path we could walk. The Terra unit hummed into the clearing with a polite, mechanical patience, lights blinking like a sleepy city. Engineers in dust hoods hopped down and began mapping the slope. They cut trenches to divert the flow, lifted bittershade by the root with soft clamps, and replaced the torn soil with woven mats seeded for quick growth. None of that happened fast. Yet even at a careful speed, the stream changed before our eyes, clouded purple, easing toward clear. Dragons watched. I do not mean they stared. I mean they observed, like learners who expect to use what they see. When an engineer dragged a log into place, a bronze-scaled adult stepped alongside and shifted a boulder that would have needed 3 people and a winch. When a hose kinked, a mottled gray tail straightened it gently. When a hatchling squawked at the sight of fleeing bittershade leaves, a pale mother nudged its head to the side and hummed low, as if to say, "We will fix this together." Amal worked without looking up, the medic's focus, a banner I could have walked behind forever. Small doses, formula adjusted. Slow hydration, heat regulation, rest. Each tiny life turned a fraction towards safety, then another. I watched the numbers climb. I watched mothers, who could have ended us all if they wished, choose, again and again, to simply be near. Jace shifted from guard to runner. He fetched packs, held pumps, set up a perimeter that felt more like a circle of care than a line of defense. Each time he passed the mother dragon who had brought us here, he dipped his head a little lower. A quiet message reached us from the colony. Director Holm had called a pause on non-essential shifts. The central dome screens showed our live feeds. People watched with hands around mugs. I imagined the sound in the dome to be the sound in this clearing now. Breath, water, tools, tiny hearts, soft dragon notes. Near midday, a new shape slipped along the edge of the forest, darker and larger than the rest. Its ribs showed as shadows under deep scales. The air tightened. The pale mother raised her head and spread her wings, not to strike, but to stand fast in front of the nests. The dark one hissed, then fell quiet, then made a string of sounds I could not place. It reminded me of a tune lost on the tongue. The pale mother answered with a short, repeating pattern like a metronome. The dark one's posture loosened. It stepped forward to the stream and looked down at its own reflection, as if embarrassed by what hunger had made it. Then it did something that pushed my breath from my chest. It lowered itself to the ground, placed its chin on its forearms, and waited. "That is a request," Amal said softly, "for help." We worked until the small numbers looked less scary and more steady. The Terra unit crew chief, Lena Voss, walked over with a tablet, her hood pushed back. "We've pulled the bittershade and seeded the bank," she said. "Flow is cleaner already. We'll leave a filter upstream until the microbes settle. Keep testing." No one drinks from here for 2 days, not even them. The dragons seemed to understand the idea of waiting. They circled back from the water without prompting and settled near the nests. When the sun found its angle through the canopy, adults shifted to cast warm shade just where the hatchlings lay. I thought of umbrellas held over strollers in noon light and felt something warm behind my eyes. Director Holm and a small team arrived near late afternoon. Boots quiet on damp earth. The admin's face looked like someone trying very hard to be practical while standing in a cathedral. Holm took the scene in, then spoke low to Jace. "Any incidents?" "None," Jace said. "If anything, they are training us." Holm's mouth twitched. "It appears so." A shard of a stone plate carved with small repeating marks, lines within lines, curves that seemed to echo water and wind. Holm crouched, eyes bright. "Is this a map?" the admin asked, to no one in particular. I traced the grooves with a gloved finger. Some marks matched the valley and the stream, if you turned the plate sideways. Other symbols had no easy partner in our minds. The mother pointed her snout toward a ridge beyond the trees, then back to the plate, then to us. The message felt like an open door. Amal finished a dose and stood, stretching the stiffness out of shoulders. "We will need a small team to follow," the medic said. "Not today, but soon. If this is where they drink, there may be other places where the water moves underground." "We will build a schedule with them," Holmes said, gaze still on the plate. "Not for them, with them." I liked the way those words sat in the air. As the sun folded toward evening and the forest's glow deepened, children from the colony drifted in with their guardians, bringing clean cloths, warm packs, and quiet voices. They learned how to pass a tool and how to wait for a sign. One small boy held out a strip of dried fruit to a nervous juvenile who took it with a care born of hunger and new manners. The boy giggled and then checked himself, as if not to disturb anyone's hopeful work. "This is reshaping people." Amal whispered to me. "You can see it happen, almost like time-lapse." "I can feel it in my ribs," I said. By night, the stream ran clear enough to reflect the round shape of Orion 9's near moon. The hatchlings slept in a loose pile, breaths even and soft. The mothers curled around them in crescents of bone and light. We left the Terra unit to finish its cycle and set small beacons along the path home. The pale mother followed us as far as the tree line, then stopped. She lifted her head and made a sound that seemed to gather the day into one held note. I did not know the dictionary meaning of that sound, but I understood its grammar. It said, "Keep going. Come back. We are not finished learning." I lifted my hand, palm open, and found, to my surprise, that I was not afraid anymore. I was only awake. Weeks unfolded like careful pages. The water stayed clean. The hatchlings grew from trembling slips of life into quick, curious shadows that chased each other through the taller grass. We set up a small learning yard at the edge of the plain with chalkboards, picture cards, and a loop of hand signs. The dragons learned fast, faster than any of us guessed. They matched symbols to things, gestures to ideas, patterns to hope. Amal started a clinic that treated scrapes and coughs without asking whether the patient had scales or skin. Lena taught a class on safe water work to both human teenagers and 3 serious young dragons who watched valves with a focus that would have made any engineer proud. Jace trained new riders to hold a line, and then, slowly, trained himself to set the rifle aside when the line looked more like neighbors than fences. One early morning, a young dragon with a copper tint tugged at my sleeve with the very edge of her teeth and then darted toward the far flats. I followed with a small team. The copper one led us to a rise where the soil rang dull under our boots, not soft like earth, but dense, like a paused bell. We brushed dust away to find the smooth plate set into the ground. A seam gave under my fingers. Beneath the plate lay a chamber of cool air and long silence. Inside, we found an old room. Not dragon work, not human. The walls held faint carvings and marks, like the stone plate the mother had given us. Small, spindles of metal, fragments like tiles, a circle made of 3 rings nested inside one another. The dragons stood in the doorway, breath gentle, as if we had stepped into a place that remembered itself. Dr. Yara Sundar from the survey team joined us within the hour. Yara's eyes shone, not with greed for answers, but with joy at the questions. "This is pre-dragon," Yara whispered, "or parallel. Either way, it means this world has longer stories than we imagined." The copper youngster tapped the three-ring circle and then pointed to the sky, where our station glowed faint in day. I felt the message settle in my chest. There were other visitors once. They had come and gone. Their trail said less about conquest than about forgetting how to be kind. That night, under a sky brushed with thin clouds, we held a meeting at the central dome. The dragons had learned the outer doors, so they arrived like great, quiet guests. The room felt like the first day of school and the last day of winter at once. Director Holmes spoke across the circle. "We propose a living agreement," Holmes said, "for shared water, shared land, and shared learning. We offer our time and our work. We ask for yours." The Pale Mother stepped forward and unfurled one wing high, a gesture we had come to know as yes, seen. She made a short pattern of notes and tapped the floor in a repeating rhythm that meant together. Yara held up the three-ring circle from the buried room. The mother touched the metal, and then my hand with the soft edge of her snout. No one clapped. It did not feel like a moment for noise. It felt like a moment to breathe and know that breathing connected us. After the vote, we did something small and brave. We started a little school at the edge of the plain, where human children and dragon younglings learned side by side. The class was not neat. Chalk dust mixed with shed scales. Picture cards got chewed on. Laughter moved like wind. One day, a quiet boy taught a young dragon to tie a simple knot with a length of blue cord. The dragon clacked in delight and then showed him how to use a curved claw to draw circles smoother than any hand. Language came like weather. We learned single words first: water, warm, safe, wait, share. Then small patterns: we help, you rest, we see danger. The Pale Mother tried sounds shaped by our tongues and surprised herself when a soft syllable landed clear. She said, "friend," one evening, almost perfect, as the sun polished the horizon. I felt my throat go tight and laughed like someone who had remembered their real name. Months later, I sat outside the hab where it had begun. The young dragons, who had once shivered in a bundle, now stole my lunch like professional thieves, then apologized by bringing me a fruit I could not name but liked anyway. Amal joined me on the bench, stretching tired legs and smiling at the sight of a juvenile carefully carrying a box of medical wraps. "Do you ever think about how close we were to failing that first day?" Amal asked. "Every time the light hits the glass," I said. "Every time the water runs clean." The Pale Mother glided in and landed with a thump we felt in our knees. She carried something draped over one claw. She laid it across my lap with careful pride. It was a simple apron made from woven reed fiber and stitched with clumsy, loving loops. On the front, in charcoal lines, a drawing of two hands passing a small loaf. "Is this what I think it is?" I asked, touched and amused. The mother made her laughing huff and said slow and proud, "Teach, make, share." "You want a lesson?" I said, "on cooking?" She nodded once, then pointed with her snout to her young, who were pretending not to eavesdrop, but were very bad at it. A few colonists gathered, curious. I stood, tied the apron, and cleared a spot at the outdoor table. We chopped and mixed. We told small stories. The young dragons learned to measure with eyes and with patience. One sprinkled too much spice. Another tried to eat the dough before it rose. We laughed and started over. When the bread came out warm and golden, we broke it with hands and claws and passed pieces around in a circle that felt older than the buried room, older than the three-ring circle, older than our fear. As evening thinned to night, a new transport came low over the plain, lights blinking hello. Fresh faces waited inside, unsure what to believe about this place. The young dragons lifted their bread to the sky, proud, and the pale mother rested her head against mine, like a quiet bell. I looked at the crowd and spoke. Not loud, but clear. Period. Here is what matters, I said. A hungry stranger came to our door. We answered with food, not fire. She answered with trust, not teeth. Everything after that is just work. Good work. Shared work. The pale mother said friend again, almost singing the word. Then, in a voice shaped by care and practice, she added a new one she had learned while kneading dough beside me. Home, she said. The young dragons echoed it, each in their way. We ate, we laughed, we planned tomorrow's chores. Somewhere in the forest, water moved over clean stones. Somewhere under the soil, old rooms waited for gentle hands. Above us, the station winked like a patient star. Below us, the ground held the weight of two kinds of footprints, side by side, not matching, but traveling together into open night. And in that easy, ordinary moment, I knew the ending we had made was less an ending and more a promise written in skylight. We would keep choosing to share. We would keep choosing to learn. We would keep choosing to make a home wide enough for both our breaths.